Clayface 2026
releases on September 11th of next year, giving us about 10 months until we get to see it, which is not the longest amount of time for us to wait patiently, but where's the fun in that? Today, we will be predicting what we can expect from Clayface 2026, how it fits into the greater DCU as a whole, and how a certain character might appear in the movie. Let's get into it. Okay, so we know the first chapter of the DCU is titled Gods and Monsters, obviously putting this movie into the monsters category, but that categorization can be a lot more interesting than you might think. Let me explain. But first, let's briefly talk about what the movie is about, or more so, rumored to be about, I guess. Clayface 2026 has been described as a psychological horror set deep within Gotham's criminal underworld, a story about identity, transformation, and corruption disguised as a monster movie. Kind of like Monster House. You know the one from 2006? It had the house that was like a monster, and it would try to eat kids. Remember that? It was Monster House, M-O-N-S. The plot reportedly follows Matt Hagen, an actor whose face is disfigured by a goon from a Gotham crime family, and in an attempt to save his appearance and career, he turns to a scientist who ultimately gives him more than he bargained for, mutating him into a clay man, hence Clayface. So yeah, the story seems pretty straightforward, typical monster movie stuff. If you've seen Batman the animated series, you kind of get the idea. But where does this monster flick fit into the DCU? Let's go back to the chapter 1 title, Gods and Monsters. Actually, let's go to Peacemaker. Seriously, let's look at the end of episode 7. Peacemaker spoilers are ahead for episode 7, but I assume you've already seen it if you're here, so yeah, that's your warning. Anyways, episode 7 ends with the 11th Street Kids brutally killing Augie of Earth X, as well as disfiguring and strongly wounding Peacemaker's brother, only stopping as a result of Peacemaker's grief. Why bring this up? Because Batman is going to be in Clayface.
I already told you can't do that. No, you need to listen. The studio already told us we're on bin guys. You can't keep spouting bullshit to take us off the air. This is the last time I'm gonna say this. Promise me you're gonna stop. Give me your pinky. Come here.
Okay, so this scene is important to the ideology of Gods and Monsters because it affirms that monsters can of course mean monsters in the literal sense, i.e. Clayface, or in the sense of being a monstrous person, i.e. Peacemaker, and everything in between. Now, I know the point of the scene isn't that Chris is a monster per se, but that no matter what dimension you go to, you are still you. You can't run from yourself type of thing. Regardless, the 11th Street Kids as a whole are portrayed in an antagonistic or villainous light, especially vigilante, at least through the perspective of Chris, who just saw them all kill his father. Villainous enough to warrant the idea that they can at the very least be portrayed as monsters, depending on who you ask. Now, I'm sure you're saying, well, Mr. Double Creature, that's all fine and dandy, but what the does that have to do with Clayface? Let me tell you, but keep it quiet. They don't like when I talk about this. Batman is gonna be portrayed as a monstrous entity through the lens of Gotham's crime families in Clayface.
Everything good in here? What are you talking about?
Yeah, everything's good. We're just discussing, Clayface, Superman, big super family. We got Crypto, Kara, Clark, shit's crazy, all of them crazy.
Alright, just checking.
Okay, so like I was saying, I strongly believe that the monster of the Clayface movie will not only be Clayface, but the Bat himself. And I know what you might be thinking. There is no way they're gonna debut Batman in Clayface of all properties. That's crazy. And to that I say, you're right, because they already did it in Creature Commandos. Now, obviously, we're not getting a full-blown Batman reveal, Bruce Wayne interactions, etc. But what this movie will give us is the opportunity to see Batman as the embodiment of fear in Gotham from the perspective of those who fear him. We've gotten to explore this briefly in The Batman or in Batman vs. Superman, but never truly from the perspective of those in fear, at least not at length. So yeah, just imagine the warehouse scene, but without killing, because Batman doesn't kill, because, Batman doesn't kill. For those still unconvinced, I would just like to say, The Brave and the Bold still does not have a release date. The Batman Part 2 doesn't come out until 2027. I find it very hard to believe that we won't see any form of Batman in the DCU for over 2 years. Especially because, like I've mentioned before, he was shown in Creature Commandos, and if James is willing to tease him in Creature Commandos, of all things, why not Clayface? Last thing, and I put this at the end because we're getting closer to leak culture as it has to do with set photos, so beware if you're not into that. We saw what seemed to be someone testing some sort of lighting configuration where it essentially creates a really strong shadow that elongates down a set of stairs, perfectly mirroring the person walking above, as a shadow does. Now imagine this imagery, but with the silhouette of Batman appearing, morphing from the shadows in an instant, preying on any unsuspecting henchman. Cinema. Of course, the shadow imagery also works very well for the Clayface story as a whole, playing with the idea of not trusting your own shadow, turning into something unrecognizable to yourself. There's a lot they could do there, and I'm excited to see. With that being said, that's all for today. Clayface on the surface seems like a pretty straightforward DC horror movie, but I think it has more to bring to the table than that. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know what you expect from Clayface. If you think Batman has any possibility of showing up, you know I do. Thanks for watching. This has been Double Creature. Bye.